Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. First of all, I want to give you all a giant thank you. I was recently in the top 10% of spirituality podcasts, and I am so grateful to you all for making this happen, for sharing the podcast, for spreading the word, to telling your friends, telling your clients, whoever it was that you shared it with. It's making a difference. And I'm just so grateful that you feel like this is a message worth spreading. And I ask that you continue to spread it. So if you have not rated and reviewed the podcast yet, please go ahead and do that. And if you are not subscribed yet, make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get your podcast. You can also subscribe on YouTube if you want to watch the podcast. Every little bit helps me grow and helps me share this message. So I just wanted to say a huge, huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for this. It really, I don't often pay attention to the charts, but I happen to, and this was such a beautiful surprise. So thank you very, very much. Today's episode is with John Strelecky and his amazing little book, and it is a little book, The Cafe on the Edge of the World, a story about the meaning of life, transported me to the point where I wasn't sure what reality was when I was reading this book. It was that powerful that I got completely sucked in to the whole thing. I felt like I was at this cafe at the edge of the world. And I am so excited for you to hear this episode. You'll hear my joy throughout it. But I'm so curious what you think about where this cafe exists, if it does exist. What is the nature of reality? How we access these expanded states of consciousness, what it means to download information and have such a clarity on some of life's biggest questions. I know you will love this episode. Just to give you a little background on John, he is a #1 best-selling inspirational author of many books, but his work has been translated into 45 languages and sold more than 11 million copies worldwide. He had this life-changing story, and you'll hear how he found this story and what the story has meant to him and so many others over the course of, I think it was 20 years that it's been written. So I know you're going to love this episode as much as I loved recording it. You're going to hear my enthusiasm just bleeding through with every question and my excitement in terms of all the neurons firing in my brain and everything that was going off for me, because it really was a very inspirational interview, but also made me question so many things about the nature of reality and what it means to live a truly meaningful life. So with that, I bring you today's episode with John Strelecky.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. Welcome, John, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Thank you so much, Amy. So happy to be here, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. My intuition has been on an all-time high over the last couple of days, so I have a hunch we're going to cover some very interesting territory.
I know we are. So I literally just finished the book, just like minutes before we got on.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to start with this. What the fuck? I mean, my mouth was on the floor. I kept checking to see, was this fiction? Is this nonfiction? I cannot believe that you had this experience. So and I was thinking the whole time, okay, I'm going to buy, who am I buying this book for? And I honestly, I'm contemplating just buying a pile of them and keeping them in my office for people just to take, because it feels like one of the most profound books I have ever read. And I've read a lot of books. I've already posted on Instagram. I've already emailed a couple of friends about it. I am just so taken with this story. So tell us a little bit about how this happened.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much. That is the highest compliment possible for an author of the type of books that I write, when someone says, I want to give it to a friend. I want to give it to someone that I care about. Because it's one thing when we connect with something, and then the whole next level is the desire to share it. And so thank you, first of all, for that. I'm literally just going to take the last 20 seconds of you talking and just savor that in the future.
You can post it and repost it.
And just repost it. Just put it on loop when I'm having a tough day. 100%. It's a very interesting story. And so I will go as far into the details of it as you wish. The full story actually takes a little bit of a backstory to kind of explain it. And that we were just talking offline about college and trying to find your way in that whole part of life. And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was 18, 19, 20. And,
shame on you, right?
I know, right? Yeah. What the heck? What were you thinking? And so I actually saw the movie Top Gun and thought to myself, that's what I want to be. I want to go be a pilot. And so for future reference, for anyone who's watching, listening, Hollywood movies are not the single greatest source of guidance as far as careers go, but
I wanted to marry Tom Cruise in Top Gun, if that's any.
Well, there you go. I mean, that actually might have been as equally strategic and intelligent as a plan as mine was, because I didn't know anything about aviation. I didn't have family in it. I had no background in it. But nonetheless, I said to myself, I want to do that. And so I went off and tried to do it. And I put everything I had into it. I put all the money I'd ever saved since I was working. I was 12 years old. I started working. We're pretty poor. And everything went into that dream. And then through a series of bizarre circumstances, I had this rare chance to go interview very early with a major airline here in the United States, because I had done an internship with them for free. And I found out that I had a rare heart condition that had never been diagnosed before. And literally, Amy, I went from thinking that I was going to be the youngest captain in the history of this airline to finding out that I would never, ever, ever be someone who flew a plane again. And it was not anything that I had done wrong. I think that was the part that hurt so bad, is I had worked so hard for that dream, physically, for physical labor, academically, to strive to get through. And then it was just gone. Literally in one letter, it was gone. Yeah, it was. And so for a year, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just kind of wandered through life half aware. And then through a series of bizarre circumstances, I ended up going back to school, which is something I didn't really want to do, but did go back to school, and got my MBA from a top university. I know you're in Chicago, so it was Northwestern University's evening program for an MBA program. And even that was a series of bizarre circumstances. I initially applied. They said no. They said, if you think you were rejected in error, you can send a letter and explain why. Amy, somewhere there is a letter that really should not be read by anyone, because when they made that offer to me, literally all I could think was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I was so angry with life, I'd worked so hard for everything and it was just taken away. And so I wrote this letter that was basically you have no idea what it's like to be a pilot. To have ice on the windshield and you're trying to fly in the middle of a Chicago winter. And because they told me that I didn't have enough practical work experience. And so I was I just went off on everything associated with this. And I didn't really expect to hear anything back. It was somewhat cathartic, somewhat therapeutic. And then crazy enough, 6 months later, I got this letter in the mail from someone who had obviously a huge, big heart, who saw through my pain. And they said, hey, congratulations, you're in for the fall. And so I show up to the evening program, my very first class, and everyone's all abuzz. They're like, we're number one. And I was like, okay, can't be football because it's Northwestern.
Right,
we're horrible at that.
Right. They're still working on that.
Yeah. I was like, what are we number one at? And they're like, we're the number one business school in the country. I didn't even know they were ranked. I was so clueless. And the huge takeaway from all of this is that sometimes the universe and the guiding presence is going to pull the rug out from underneath you, it feels like. And then if you allow yourself to, it's going to give you a gift in ways you can't imagine. And so that was my return gift. And so I did that for 5 years. I was a strategy consultant. I left everything behind in my early 30s, went to backpack around the world, did that for a year, completely changed my life. Came back, sat down, and something said, sit down and start typing. And so I sat down, and 21 days later, the cafe on the edge of the world was there. It was on pages. And I would love to tell you that I wrote that book, but the much more accurate description is that the book wrote itself through me. I could see the characters. I could hear Casey talking. I was just trying to get it down as fast as possible as it was taking place in front of me. So yeah, I can't really claim I was the author of it as much as the collaborative conduit to it.
Give us a little bit of background about like the book and how it came to be and the questions that come forward in it.
Yeah. So what's fascinating is, I mean, this is like so many different ways to go with this conversation, but what was I tapping into is a very fascinating question to me. And I believe that I was tapping into a story that already existed and was waiting for an author to write it. And by leaving everything behind in my early 30s and following my dream of being an adventurer and going backpacking around the world on $40 a day, I had demonstrated to the cosmic algorithm of the universe that I was a candidate. And so I had demonstrated my willingness to follow my heart, to do something that other people said was crazy, but that I knew in my heart of hearts was the right thing for me to do at that time. And so I think there's a huge takeaway there, which is that activates the algorithm to say they're a candidate for something. In my case, it was a candidate for this.
So what do you mean the cosmic algorithm? Can you explain what that means?
So what I've discovered over the course of time is that in the same way that there are algorithms which we understand and know from social media and from like Google, here's a very easy example. If you got on Google and you typed in purple polka dotted cows and you typed it in 50 times today, and you typed it in 50 times tomorrow, that the algorithm of Google is going to say, oh my gosh, Amy seems totally fascinated by purple polka dotted cows. And so regardless of what you're continuing to type in, it's going to start feeding you content. You'll get video clips about purple polka dot cows. You'll get articles. You'll get little pictures and images. And so what I've discovered is that there is a cosmic algorithm that works the same way. So I can think to myself, this is what I want my life to be. I can even say it out loud, but it's a question of what am I demonstrating? What am I doing? Because what I'm doing is telling the algorithm, this is what he cares about. This is what he loves. And the reason that's true is because I believe we're creatures of free will. And so literally we could be doing anything. And so the algorithm, God, if you want to substitute that word, the universe, whatever word works for your belief system, is saying, they're a creature of free will. They've got 28,900 days statistically on the planet. And this is the way that they are choosing to spend their time. They must love it. Think of all the other things they could be doing. And they're choosing to do this. And therefore, since I am a benevolent, loving, guiding presence, I'll give them more of that. And so if we're not careful, the very actions, just like typing in purple polka dot cows, is activating the algorithm to say, this is what I want more of. Now, when we reset the algorithm, which is what I did by leaving everything behind, demonstrating that adventure was what I really wanted my life to be about, it was like everything reset. And everything that came my way was now adventure-based, enabling me to live a life that was adventurous, enabling me to have adventures. And so this is massively important to me as a way to go through the human experience, because the takeaways were, A, you can reset the algorithm all the time simply by changing what I'm doing. 2, it's not enough to be thinking it or saying it. The critical thing is what I'm demonstrating through my actions. And 3, this is probably the massive takeaway, is that no matter how low you may feel things are, and I was very, very low in those moments that we were talking about, sometimes there's actually a bigger game at play that you just don't understand yet. And so don't let that be the place where the story ends. Keep rewriting the story and get very intrigued about where things could go. Like that, the Cafe on the Edge of the World is it's in 45 languages. I do events. I have the great chance to travel the world and be an adventurer in ways I never could have imagined before. I had the concept right. I had the way in which I would do it incorrect, I guess. I mean, does that make sense to you? Do you have stories of these in your own life, and where it's you've realized my actions are demonstrating something that are different than what I want? You make a subtle change, and all of a sudden it's different. Yeah,
I mean, I think what I often talk about in that way is like a synchronicity, right? Like how the world starts showing up for you and
Yeah.
things the paths, I call it in my therapy practice, like the lily pads, how the lily pads suddenly start. You don't know how you're going to get to the other side, but you have this vision of that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
And and because you have that vision, the way to get there reveals itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what happened with you. It's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I'm giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode.
And the crazy thing is it'll not reveal itself, I find, and this is, again, based on my own story, but I find that it doesn't reveal itself without action. The minute you take action, all of a sudden, it's almost like the algorithm, universe, God says, oh, awesome. That's where you want to go. And all the resources that it has at its disposal now become aligned to get you in that direction, to help facilitate you getting to that lily pad that you want to get to. Up until then, because I was going back and forth, doing things that made me unhappy, it was like, I don't think this is really what he wants to do. So therefore, I'm not going to allocate those resources that I have at my disposal towards something that's going to actually make him unhappy.
So when you were in this space, do you feel like it was like divine intervention and you were divinely guided to sit down and just start writing?
Yeah, I was actually having a very interesting conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine who's another author, and he was asking me, like, did you actually hear the voice or did you feel the voice that said sit down and start typing? And I can't 100% remember, but I think it was more of a feel than a hear. But having just spent a year backpacking around the world, when you're in cultures that you don't know and languages you don't speak, more than anything, what you have to trust is your intuition. And so my intuitive muscle that channel was very, very wide open when I came back from that trip. And so I think that's another piece of it, is how clearly can you hear the message when it's coming to you? And the more distractions there are, the more difficult it is to hear the noise. The visual that works for me is, imagine you're trying to sing a song that you love, but you are surrounded by 50 speakers all playing different songs other than that one. It's really, really hard to focus. However, if you take away the noise, now you can actually feel the song. You can feel the intuitive connection when it's talking to you. And I think my channel is just super wide open. So when I felt sit down and start typing, I didn't judge it. I didn't question it. I was like, okay, I guess I'm sitting down and starting typing. Like, had I have had that prompt 3 years earlier when I was doing what I was doing, no way. Right.
Well, you probably wouldn't have even heard sit down and start typing, right?
Yeah,
because you
totally
were so
true.
blocked by everything else.
Totally true.
So in this book, you ask, the book is called The Cafe on the Edge of the World, a story about the meaning of life. And there are 3 questions that came through you, I guess. Yeah. Why are you here? Do you fear death? are you fulfilled? And those are, so the gist of the story is that you stumble upon this cafe of questions.
Yeah.
As you get stuck in a traffic jam, you got to turn around, you're kind of lost, right? The metaphor of you're completely lost and you stumble into this cafe, and on the menu, you turn the menu over, and on the menu are these questions. The why are you here? Do you fear death? Are you fulfilled?
Yeah.
What do you think it is about those questions that came through you that really give us the answers, if you so choose to answer them and engage with them, and they're deep, profound questions that give us the answers or the path to what makes a meaningful, fulfilling life?
Yeah. Right before I answer that question, I got to tell you, one of the coolest things of the download process was that when I went back, even when I go back now, I see things in the story that I didn't see before. Like the subtle undertones of what something, I don't want to spoil, but when he turns around, there's a line in there about that he wasn't sure, was he going farther or closer to where he needed to be? And there's all these subtle things that came through in the download that I only realized later. And even other people have pointed them out to me, like, oh, is that what you meant there? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't realize it, but yeah. So it's very cool to me how even that stuff was subtly built into the messaging.
Yeah, it does feel like every word. I mean, I said, like, I kept reading it being like, what is this? Is it fiction? Is it nonfiction? Like, was this divine intervention? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I had to keep, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that to your question, which I think is a beautiful question, about why those three. And what I'll tell you is that from the time that I was a little kid, I was asking myself, what is the point? Like, I don't get it. What is the point of this existence thing? And it's kind of weird. I didn't feel like anybody else was asking the question. I felt a little bit like outside of the norm.
Probably not at the young age, but
yeah, I mean, I was like reading books and playing sports and other things too, but I just couldn't figure out like what was the point of this all. And there had to be a point. It felt like there had to be a point. And so that question, why am I here? I do believe it's maybe the single most important question we can ask during our human existence, because it guides everything else. It's like if someone said to you, hey, you just won the vacation of your dreams, go pack. The very first thing you'd ask is, well, where am I going? Because I don't know whether to pack snorkel gear or snow skis. I don't know, like, how am I preparing for this? Where are we going? And to me, that question is, why am I here, is the leading question that then becomes, well, what am I going to do with the minutes of my life? Where do I want to take this experience? And it also sends you backwards a little bit, like, why am I here? Oh, I don't know. How does the whole game work? So it opens up this Pandora's box, this beautiful Pandora's box of asking, how does the game of life work? What is the point of it all? And those, I think, are awesome questions to ask, because they then guide you for the way in which you want to spend your 28,900 days. And without having that question, I think we just end up doing a whole bunch of stuff. But if you just do a whole bunch of stuff, then you get to the second question, which is, do you fear death? Mm-hmm. And the line in there, which is super, super profound to me, it's said by Mike, who's the owner of the cafe. And he says, it's not that people fear dying. What they fear is getting to the end of their life and realizing that they haven't really lived.
Yeah.
And like, I get goosebumps saying that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's totally true, that in my experience reading amazing books about people on their deathbeds, people who have been hospice care workers, like, what people get to the end is that they don't want to have regrets. They don't want to look back and say, gosh, I totally wish I would have said I love you to that person that I loved. I totally wish I would have taken that great big adventure and gone on it, you know? And the takeaway is that you can't regret not having done the stuff that you wanted to do if you've already done it. If you tell your kids you love them, you can't regret getting to a point where you haven't told your kids that you love them. And so the craziness of it is that it's simpler than we think it is, you know, like, okay, go do it, go see it, go experience it.
But how do you circle the square of needing to live, right? Like, in some ways, this is, some might say it's so idealistic. Like, sure, just leave everything behind, travel the world. But in reality, you can't do that. And you grapple with this in the book. I think at one point you ask, so there's 3 characters in the book. Each one kind of comes in and out of your dining experience to grapple with like these life questions. And at some point you feel excited that you asked this question that seems to stump them. Like, but wait, I still have to exist in this world. I still have to make a living. I still have to support a family or whatever, pay the bills, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So how do you, for people who are struggling with, well, I can't just, blow up my life and eat, pray, love, or whatever it is, go on this road trip, or how do you live from a fulfilled place if it feels like you're really stuck?
So it's interesting that you use eat, pray, love, because it's a really interesting example, because she did. She basically said, I can't do this anymore. She was having suicidal thoughts. She was at her ropes, her wit's end. And she said, I just need to do this. And off she went. And at the time she left, she didn't have any idea that it was going to become eat, pray, love. But she just had to follow her intuition. The challenge is letting ourselves get to the point where we're so beaten down by life, we're so demoralized that then we take action. I think in an ideal world, you do what's called sampling. And so you start to sample the existences that you'd like to have. And what's interesting from a brain perspective is that the brain wants to do the same thing today that it did yesterday. Its basic function is to keep you alive. And it knows that whatever you did yesterday must have worked because you're still here today. And so our job is to help the brain realize that there's other stuff too, which feel even more fulfilling, that feel even better. And so if you don't want to do the dramatic cut and leave, and I recommend that approach, it worked great for me, but I know that other people are more reticent to try that, and I totally respect that. That said, when I was out backpacking around the world, I met a mom who had 5 kids with her, aged, I think, 4 to 15, who was out backpacking the most remote regions of China and doing it just her and 5 kids. And so the more examples I had in my head of this can't be done, the more I met amazing people who were doing it anyway. And so, and the takeaway for me with traveling was, I remember before I left, I was like, I don't know if I can actually do this or if it can be done. I don't know anyone who's ever done something like this. And what I came to realize, Amy, is that the reason I didn't know anybody who was out there backpacking around the world when they were 32 is because I was sitting in an office in a cubicle with other people who were sitting in an office and a cubicle. Of course, I wasn't going to meet someone who was out there backpacking around the world because I wasn't doing it. But the minute I got out there, I met thousands of people from all walks of life. I remember meeting a guy who would spend a year working in a call center, save all of his money, and then he'd go travel for a year. I met a woman who was a scuba dive instructor, and she would scuba dive for 6 weeks in a scuba dive destination. She'd bank her money, and then she'd go travel for 3 months, always ending up in another scuba dive destination where she'd instruct for 6 weeks and do it again. So I probably came across 100 different ways to live that reality alone, let alone whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you want to spend more time with your kids. Like, I guess the barrier that we think is there, if we open up our search wide enough, you're going to find people who have figured out a way around that. And so that would be my suggestion, is find these who's. I talk about don't get caught in how. It's about who, not how. There's somebody out there who's already done, seen, or experienced what you want to do, see, or experience. Find them, learn everything you can about them, and start to sample that reality, and your brain will start to get on board. And so that's a much slower tactical methodology, very process-based if you're wired that way, for a listener or watcher. That can help you get there. Because at some point, I used to do this funny thing, Amy, where I'd say to somebody, okay, so you want to go, this one person in particular, I remember they were like, I want to ride on a sailboat for 6 months. And I was like, all right, so I'll tell you what, for the first 2 weeks, I want you to come back to me. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I want you to spend 5 minutes a day learning about sailboats, like learning about what that experience would be like. And so I had them brainstorm, how could I do that? They're like, I could watch YouTube videos. I could look at a sailing magazine. I was like, great, do those things 5 minutes a day, no more. Come back to me in 2 weeks. They come back to me in 2 weeks, and I was like, how's it going? They're like, well, it's great. It's awesome. And they're like, but 5 minutes a day, I'll be in the middle of a video and I can't watch the rest of it. I got to wait till tomorrow. I was like, all right, well, for the next 2 weeks, 10 minutes a day. Right. And so they come back at the end of 2 weeks. I'm like, how was it? It was great. I said, all right, great. So I want you to go down to the docks. I said, and I want you to find someone who is on the docks. I want you to just walk around, get excited about sailboats, but under no circumstances can you get on a boat. Like, you cannot get on a boat. And they're like, really? I was like, yeah, you cannot get on a boat. They come back to me, Amy, and I'm like, how was it? They're like, it was amazing. Like, I met so many incredible people who have done so many incredible things on sailboats. You wouldn't believe it. And I was like, and they seemed kind of frustrated. I was like, well, what was frustrating? They're like, I met these people, and they're like, come on board the sailboat, see what it's like on board the boat. And I couldn't go on board the boat because you wouldn't let me. And I was like, great. So how does your brain feel right now about getting on a sailboat? And you just saw them pause for a second, like, I got it. Like before, my brain didn't want me to get on that sailboat and go for 6 months. Now my brain is like, for God's sakes, will you let me get on a sailboat? And that's what sampling does. Sampling switches it from a no to a yes.
So how does sampling work in other areas? I mean, that's great for like travel and, things like that. But how would it work for, I don't know, maybe you're in an unhappy relationship you don't want to be in, or a job you hate, but you're still constrained by life.
So let's take the relationship. Let's take the relationship one first. Very often people are hesitant to spend time alone. And so, maybe taking 2 days off to do something that you love. So maybe identifying something that you love and that is maybe a point of conflict with your partner. So you like dancing, they don't like dancing. You like scuba diving, they don't like scuba diving. Whatever is the thing that is you. Or you like hiking and they're like a city person. So find something that is very special to you that builds your energy in a beautiful way, and spend a couple of days and do that. And when you come back, see how you feel, see how your energy is, and see if you enjoyed that more than you enjoyed being in the relationship. I have a theory about relationships, which is people will stick out a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And they think they're doing the other person a favor. But trust me, if it's a 6 or a 7 for you, it's a 6 or a 7 for them too. And so there's somebody out there for you that is an 8 or a 9 or a 10. And there's somebody out there for them that's an 8 or a 9 or a 10. So you're not doing yourself or them any favors by sticking it out for their benefit at a 6 or a 7, especially not at a 3.
So I want to go back to how this book came to you, because I'm super curious about that. And then we'll go back because I have other questions. How long did it take to write?
The process took 21 days. So every day I would get the feeling to sit down and start typing. And I never read what I had typed the previous days. I never thought about what I was going to type. I just would sit down and I would literally open up my laptop and I would sort of enter a space. How would I describe that? It's kind of like a good meditative space where you're in another world and the rest of the world sort of shuts out and you're just there, and you don't hear noise, you don't hear sounds, you don't get distracted by things. And so I would enter that space and I would just instantly be in the cafe and I would see the characters and they would start talking and I would start typing and trying to capture it all down. And it went on for 21 days. And then at the end of the 21 days, something inside of me just said, it's done. And as you know from reading the book, it has a natural conclusion to it. And so I think it felt like it was done too.
Well, at some point you got to leave the cafe.
Yeah, exactly. Although remind me to tell you in a second about going back to the cafe, and I'll tell you what that experience was like. And so it felt done. And so I put it on the shelf and let it sit there for about a week. I think I printed it out. And then I went and read it about a week later. And literally what is in the Cafe on the Edge of the World book is almost word for word what was on those pages at the end of the 21 days. So yeah, it was a really amazing stream of conscious experience where I was tapping into something bigger than me. And I'm not the only one who experiences this, by the way. So I don't want anybody to think like, oh, that's just for him. No, I think I've met thousands of people over the years. It's not always writing, but they tap into something that is so much bigger than them.
Yeah. I mean, for me, most recently, it was this course that I'm teaching just like came to me in a download. And it was like, I had struggled for years to figure it out. And then it was like, oh, here it is. Like, just go write down exactly what I'm telling you right now, and everything will be perfectly aligned. And since then, like everything's been much easier. But when you're sitting in those moments and you're seeing the characters, like, do you feel like you're in another world? Do you literally feel like you're living in this world with them, that you're transported to this cafe?
That's a great question. I think that the majority of the time that I was there, I was John. So I entered the cafe and was having the dialogues in some respects. And then sometimes I was the observer to the dialogues. And so I think my guess is, wow, I've never thought of this before. So great question. My guess is when it was something that I was still struggling with or still dealing with, I was him in the cafe. When it was something that I've experienced prior and maybe have gotten a better handle on, then I was the observer to the conversation, remembering what it was like to be me in that moment.
So do you feel like this was like a channeling? Was it a divine intervention? Was it, I mean, it's so circumscribed. Was it a spiritual awakening that suddenly like the whole world was different and now you had answers to these deep, meaningful questions that you had really been struggling with? Like, because I've interviewed people who say like they have a moment where they sort of fall on their knees. They feel like they don't know where to turn and they fall to the ground and they say like, someone, God, source, universe, I don't know what's out there, please help me. And I know you didn't have that moment at that moment, but it does sound like there was something there that kind of moved you into that space of like, answer these questions for me.
Yeah, I would say it was slightly different for me. I would say my fall on your knees moment wasn't quite that, but it was a catalyst that led me to make the decision to go travel. So my grandfather passed away. He was in his 80s. And I didn't know him super well. He lived far away and I'd only met him probably a dozen times in my entire life. But I distinctly remember my mom calling me. I can picture exactly looking through my little kitchen window in my tiny apartment in downtown Chicago. I can see my couch. I can see the windows, everything. I can remember that very, very vividly. And I remember getting off that phone call and the thought was, if I keep doing what I'm doing and I get to that point, I get to be 80 like he got to, will I be happy with the life that I lived? And it was a very, very obvious no. And so that was a very defining moment experience for me that something had to change. And so literally from that moment, from that phone call on, I started to implement the change plan. And I had planned to quit in October of that year. And through a series of very bizarre, you could say divine circumstances, in February of that year is when I was like, actually, I'm out even earlier, and I left.
So why, one of the questions you propose, well, first of all, you talk about PFEs.
Yes.
Purpose for existing. How do we begin to cultivate or understand what that is? And what is it? I'm curious where you've come to what that is for you. Like what do you feel like your answer to that question is?
Yeah. So I'll answer the question about what it is for me, and then I'll sort of backtrack in terms of how I went through the process of structuring, et cetera, and what I recommend to people. So for me, my purpose for existing, like why am I here? The answer to that first question, why am I here, is to create museum day moments for myself and others. And I have to explain to you what museum day moments are.
I was wondering because
yes, I
got a bounce back text that said, have a great museum day.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So museum day is actually—
I'm assuming it was a bounce back and you didn't,
yeah.
You don't personally respond to all the DMs.
This is a concept that came through me based on an experience that I had, and I wrote about it in a book called The Big Five for Life, but I'll tell you what it means and why it became my purpose for existing. So I was wandering through this tiny little museum very close to where I live, and I was looking at all these pictures of people who had passed away. It was a high school yearbook, but it was like really old. It was from like the early 1910s, 1920s.
They had yearbooks back then?
Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? And so I remember looking at these pictures, Amy, and the overriding thought that I had was, I wonder if they did it. You know, like they're all gone now. Like that book was so old and the people would have for sure all passed away by now. And in the book, in the picture, they looked so young. Like they had their whole lives ahead of them. They're 18 years old. And so this thought that was in my head was like, I wonder if they did it, whatever the it was. Did they ask out that person they thought was so funny? Did they go travel if they wanted to travel? Did they start that business that they thought they could be really good at someday? And so from that line of thinking that day came this concept that imagine if every moment of our life was actually recorded. Everything we did, everything we said, all the places that we went, all the ways we spent our time.
Some might say it is from an Akashic Records perspective, but
there you go.
We'll keep going.
Then, yeah. So then this could get really interesting then. So, and then towards the end of your life, a museum is built to honor you, except that your museum is going to show your life exactly how you lived it. And so if 80% of your minutes, 80% of your days were spent on things that didn't bring you joy, then your museum is going to be dedicated to that. And there's going to be pictures and videos and kiosks and audio tracks you can listen to, all showing you spending your time on these things that didn't bring you joy. Now,
God,
to the contrary,
I got to get rid of that phone.
Yeah. So this is where it gets, well, hang on, because it's going to get really interesting in a second here, even more interesting. So imagine if you had things that you did love. So, spending time with your family or friends or a hobby or a passion, doing this, like doing interviews, getting to meet people. But for whatever reason, you only spent 2% of your time on those loves. Then no matter how much you wished it to be different, only 2% of your museum is going to be dedicated towards those things. And yeah, so maybe just a few pictures near the exit door, whatever is your percentage. Now, imagine if heaven or the afterlife or however you perceive this whole thing works in the context of your belief systems. What if that actually consists of you being the tour guide for your own museum for all of eternity? And when I had this thought come to me, it just reframed so much of the way I spent my minutes, what I did with my days, how I wanted to spend my time. And so, yeah, my PFE is to create museum day moments for myself and others, like really good museum day moments. And initially I started off with something that was more like create happy moments, but I came to realize, and I'm sure you do this in your practice constantly, it's not always about bringing someone to a place of happiness. Sometimes it's just being there when they're sad, but being a comforting presence. Sometimes it's guiding them from a place of really bad pain to a place of not pain, but not necessarily joy yet. And so the museum day to me was about really being there and creating special moments, whatever those look like for people. And so that's my purpose on the planet.
Have you ever, because it sounds similar to how near-death experiencers describe a life review a little bit. Are you familiar with that concept at all of the life review?
Yeah, there's a book called Hello from Heaven by a guy named Bill Guggenheim where he talks about all people who've done.
I've had Bill on a long time ago. Yeah. But it's common in the near-death experience research is that they experience life from the perspective of every single person that they impacted. So this has like another little spin on that, which is that you're looking at your life from the moments you've experienced, which, could also be how you've impacted other people. But so what are on a day-to-day, what do museum day moments look like?
Yeah. So for me, one of the things that matters most is to have a loving relationship with the people I care about. And so on a very, very small example of this is how I show up when someone enters my space. And so if I'm at home and I'm working on something at my desk and my daughter comes home from school and she opens the door, do I turn instantly and greet her with a smile on my face, regardless of what struggle I may have been having on the document I was working on or whatever? Do I keep typing? I know she's there, but do I just keep typing and wait till she says something? And so it's a really wonderful guide because if I'm going to review that moment in my museum for all of eternity, who's the version of me that I want to have showed up in that second? I want the version of me to show up that was the guy who literally, the minute I heard her footsteps, turned and put a smile on my face and started walking to the door to give her a hug. Like nothing on that screen was more important than she is to me. And so I love the fact that it helps guide me towards the behaviors that are me doing the version of me that I want to see in that museum, that I want to live on a daily basis. And so you talked about our phones. I think our phones are such a great example of that. These things, if we're not careful, become like crack cocaine for addiction. And so having the perspective of the museum enables you to think in a given moment without massively judging yourself, but just say, hey, is that me showing up in the best version of me this moment? And if not, what would that look like? And then embracing and adopting that new habit so that you get to show up as your best version of you.
Right. This is like embarrassing to even say out loud, but I started the other day when I was walking in and out of the gym. Everybody walks into the gym like this and out of the gym, face in the phone. And I was like, I'm going to walk from the entrance of the gym to the parking lot without looking at my phone. And then I was like, I'm going to walk from the parking lot to my car. Okay, this sounds ridiculous in terms of what we're talking about here, like it's a phone, but I encourage everybody who's listening to just think about it for a second and try it, because you don't realize how much you're missing those just basic, like, hey, how are you? When someone walks, a smile, getting into an elevator and greeting someone with a hello. It's just mind blowing how far we've gotten from that and how I think disconnected then we are from these PFEs.
Yeah, I don't think it's ridiculous what you said at all. I think it's brilliant. It's sampling. It's re-experiencing the moment when you look at another human being and look him in the eye and smile. And that's a beautiful experience, by the way. When I was doing one of my travels, I was in Peru. I couldn't speak Spanish very well. And I realized that I wanted to say thank you to people in a much bigger way than just gracias. I wanted to like do something and I didn't know what I could do. And so I came up with this really weird thing where it's called a smile ripple. And that if you're walking down a sidewalk, a crowded sidewalk, and you make eye contact with someone and you smile at them, autonomically, our behavior is to smile back. Like if someone gives you a genuine smile, you can't even almost not do it. You're going to smile back. And it's wonderful for your immune system. It kicks off a whole bunch of really good chemicals that work to destroy pathogens and other things. It's just part of the wiring in our system. And so, not only are you doing something good for your own health, but you're doing something good for the other person's health. But what's cool about it is, again, kind of get the visual. You're walking, they're walking, you smile at them. Because you smiled at them, they smiled. When they smile back, you get a glimpse of it, but because you're both walking, the person who really sees it is the person behind you. And that person then automatically smiles too. But the person who sees their smile is not the one who smiled at them, but the one behind that person. And it creates this ripple up and down the sidewalk. And all it takes to do it is to make eye contact with one person and start it with a smile. It's effortless to do. The benefits have multiple because a lot of people smile with it. And again, it's just an example of sampling something other than just looking at the phone. And so, I encourage everybody to just try and find these little things. What's interesting to me is when the Cafe at the Edge of the World flowed through me, I would say the main focus that I talked about in there about why people couldn't find their PFE or couldn't fulfill their PFE was mass consumerism. Yeah. So the amount of advertising that is spent trying to get you to believe that this thing will make you feel fulfilled. This car, this diamond, this ice cream will make you happy, right? That was the biggest barrier towards someone actually being able to discover and live their PFE. I would say at this moment, it's that times 1,000 with the distraction of the phone.
How long ago was this written?
The very original version flowed through me over 20 years ago, crazy enough.
Okay. So it feels so relevant to today.
Yeah. So I would say that today, again, the biggest obstacle that we're all facing is, are we willing to allow ourselves to spend our time, not just our money, because before it was just money. Now it's our time and our money on the things that we have decided are actually fulfilling. Not because somebody else has convinced us it is or sucked us in with a device that is really wired to keep you on it, right? It's like it's designed to keep you on it. And the interesting thing about this, Amy, is maybe this is part of the algorithm that as we as a world, we're evolving and getting more aware, that the algorithm was like, all right, I gotta ramp it up. I gotta like make it a little more challenging on the next level. So this is the next level.
Oh, the video game?
Yeah.
We're like now at level 10 of Zelda.
Yeah, so
I'm
maybe
totally dating myself here for those who played Zelda.
I know, but it could be that as we were evolving and getting smarter and more aware, that the system was like, all right, let's ramp it up.
I don't like how they ramped it up, though. I'm not digging the level. I could drop to a level 2. I think I'd be happy at,
And yet,
getting the jewels or whatever it was in level 2.
Yeah, you're like, I'll take a Zelda box of jewels. Yet, when you master it, the satisfaction is so much bigger because the size of the challenge was so much bigger. I totally hear you. There are days, I heard you on one of your other episodes, and you said something. I was like, oh my gosh, I've literally said that same thing so many times, where I'm like, universe, I got it. Can we just tone it down for today? Because I just don't have it in me to deal with a not level 9 challenge today. But we know, like, that's where that's the indicator. That is what's guiding us towards a moment of personal discovery, which, should we actually allow ourselves to make that discovery, is going to open up an opportunity that is so much bigger than we ever realized. So the question is, like, what's on the other side of mastering the device? Like, I don't know. Everybody's answer is going to be different.
Nirvana.
Certainly fulfillment.
Yeah.
Because before you had it, what were you doing? This would be an interesting thing.
I think of this all the time.
Yeah. Did you read more books? Did you spend more time having random conversations? Did you talk on the phone because you actually got a chance to have a conversation versus a text like that? It'd be interesting to think about.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've started doing is picking the phone up and calling people when they're on my mind rather than texting them and being like, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah.
Let's find a time to chat. And then we never find a time to chat. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'll just call you. And if you can answer, great. And if not, you heard my voice and I said, hope you're well and give me a call back when you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I have a friend who will, if she's going to leave me a message, she'll leave me a voice message via text. Like I'm so past the point where I actually listen to my voicemails on my phone. Like I don't even look at those for the most part because it's all spam. But a voice text I will still listen to. And it's so much more personal. I hear her voice. I hear her enunciation.
The audio text.
Yes, exactly. It's an audio text.
Yeah. Which is basically a voicemail, but now it's an audio.
Yeah, exactly.
text,
It's found a way to get through the clutter. But
Right.
I like yours so much better of just actually picking up the phone and making the call and having a conversation with someone. What would mean more in your museum? Like having the conversation for sure.
Right. Even if it's just 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you, why do we spend so much time preparing for the life we want to live versus living the life we want to live?
Yeah, I would say it is because there is a common held belief, and I don't know if it is hardwired in us prior to birth or if it's cultural conditioning. I've experienced that people, no matter where I go and speak around the world, seem to have it, which makes me actually think it's more wiring than conditioning. But there's an underlying fear that worst case scenario, I'm going to be homeless, under a bridge, and starving.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that before in my office. Yeah.
And my guess is that we, at a cellular level, you don't have to go too many generations back when we knew deep starvation, when we knew fear of predation because we had no place to stay. We weren't in the hut. We weren't in the stockade that we had built. And therefore, we were at great risk of being eaten by an actual predator. And so, cells are literally passed from generation to generation on an actual cell level. If you believe in cell memory, then we carry some of that with us when we're born. Excuse me, so that might be part of it. But the interesting thing is that realistically, with the talents that you have, I have, and the people who are listening or watching have, that's not highly likely to happen. And so it's a belief system that is not based on likelihood of reality. And so getting to the underlying reason why you believe something and then challenging that belief system can be one of the easiest ways to start breaking that apart. And so I would say a very good life practice is to literally challenge every belief that you hold and say, where did it come from? Why do I have it? And do I have any data that would suggest that it's not actually true? And I'll tell you one that is one of the biggest ones I see. I personally suffered for a long time from it. And I was raised in an environment where if people had a lot of money, they must have ripped someone off. That was kind of the cultural conditioning. So they could be good people, but you get to that level of wealth, you must have ripped somebody off, right? That was kind of the exact way it was explained. And so I carried that for a long time, and I would be doing stuff, and at some point I would self-sabotage. Like I'd be doing a business of my own as an entrepreneur, and I would just quit, right? Or I'd make a career decision. My friends would be like, what are you doing? Like, it's going so well. Why are you quitting? Like, I don't know, right? Just feel like doing something different. But in truth, I finally realized that I had this belief system that, like, at my core, I believe in doing good things for good people. Like, I really want to be a person who contributes to the betterment of others. And contrast that with the money belief system that said, if you have a lot of money, you must have ripped people off. Well, I didn't want to be a person who ripped people off. So now I would just blow things up before I became that person. So how do you break that? Well, it only took 2 data points for me to break it. I asked myself the question, is there anybody out there that I either know personally or just know of that seems to be doing a lot of good things for good people and that seems to have generated a lot of wealth from that? And 2 people came to mind. One was Oprah Winfrey, and the other was an author who has passed away quite a while ago called Wayne Dyer. Oh. And everything I knew about those people, I was like, they've done good stuff, and the world has responded with a big thank you, and they're still doing good stuff. And once I had that, Amy, I could no longer hold the false belief in my system. Like the conflict would come up every time, and I finally had to let it go. Crazy enough, letting that go is what started to launch things for me financially.
So what was the, were the other books, because this is the only one I've read, but now I'm very curious about the other ones. Were the other ones also channeled through you? Did they also come through you in the same way?
I would say the degree of co-collaboration shifted percentage-wise in that when I sit down and I start typing, I enter this same space.
Would you call it like a portal?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's as good of a word as any. And it's, I entered the portal. I guess it's more of a portal. A portal I see as being a connection point from here to something else. I'm entering the something else. So I don't know what that would be.
Oh,
but
okay. Okay.
another version of reality, I guess.
So you go through a portal to this space.
Yeah. And it's an instantaneous thing. I literally sit down and I'm there. And so when I'm there, I do see the characters talking. I see them. I see the scenes. I hear the dialogue. I would say there's a little bit more of co-collaboration sometimes, for sure. But that said, I told you that I'd talk about going back to the cafe. When I wrote the second book in the cafe series, it opens with John on a bicycle in Hawaii, and at some moment he actually sees the cafe. And when I saw the cafe, like I'm writing it, but as I actually saw it, it was this immense feeling of coming home. I can't even describe it to you. And when I'm in the cafe, it feels like home. It feels like the place I can't find answers to some things unless I'm there. Or if I go there, I can find answers that I can't seem to find anywhere else, is a better way to say that.
Yeah. I mean, what this brings up for me is just like, what is reality? What is the nature of reality, right? Because it feels like, I mean, I keep saying this, like, as I'm reading the book, I'm questioning, like, is this real or not real? Is this fiction or nonfiction? And it sounds like it's almost both. Like it's an alternate reality. You are in this space. Yeah. But it's not in this current plane as we see it, I guess, is the best. Yeah, maybe it doesn't function exactly the same as the current one that we're in. I know one of the interviews that I listened to recently of one of your guests, you were talking about tapping into, or it was people who were mystics that can connect to angels, they can connect to higher beings. I think this is just the way that my sources of guidance show up for me. They show up in a cafe on the edge of the world, a place that's in the middle of nowhere that looks like an old diner. I'm sure everybody else's shows up in a way that works for them. For whatever reason, this is how mine shows up. Do you actively go there? Like when you're not writing, do you ever go into a meditation and have a question and go to the cafe on the edge of the world? Yeah, I had a really cool experience. I mean, so I'll think about it. I'll ask. So Casey is the waitress in the cafe, and she's this incredibly wise, grounded. She's like the rock foundational person in the cafe. So would we call her like a spirit guide, or is that taking it a little too far? No, I think that's a great description, actually. Yeah, and the reason that I know that the content often is way beyond me is because I'll be in the cafe, I'll be experiencing it, and Casey, or one of the other characters, but Casey, it happens with Casey a lot, will say something that is so wise, so profound that I know it wasn't in my head. Like I didn't know that a second before I experienced it, and so I know it's coming from somewhere else. But I remember one time I was struggling with something in life. I was just kind of frustrated, and I was walking and I was trying to talk to Casey as I was doing my walk, and I was like, I just don't feel you. I don't feel the cafe these last days, these last weeks. And I think I said the question, like, have you guys just kind of abandoned me? And the voice came back and she said, John, you have to remember, you're not the only one that comes here. Oh my God. I was like, okay, that's a humbling moment right there. Did you listen to the telepathy tapes? No, I'll have to listen to that one. Oh my God. When they talk about the hill, you'll know once you listen, and people who have listened will know what I'm talking about. That's like what this feels like. Yeah. I mean, I just can't get over like how sucked in I got to questioning reality when I was reading the book. Well, that's like my biggest takeaway. I love that on so many levels, because as we're having this discussion and talking about portal and the destination now, and again, I haven't thought about this in this way before. So again, thank you for this idea. When I asked myself, why me? Like it could have been anyone. Why me? And I think I had demonstrated to the universe and to the algorithm that I was a potential candidate. I think had I have not sat down and started typing when it said sit down and start typing,
the book would still exist. Like you could still be reading The Cafe on the Edge of the World, but the name on the bottom would not say John Strelecky. It would have said somebody else's name, or at the top, I guess. And so what I realized through this conversation is I think that part of what my role was to open up the portal to the cafe through the physicality of the book or the releasing of the story, so that other people, having read and experienced the book, now could go there too. I've never thought about it. So thank you very much for that. But I definitely, that feels so good when I say it and I feel it on a physical level, that's my guess. Is that,
yeah, I mean,
they said, hey, can you help open this portal? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like you were transported. I don't know. I read so many books. This just felt, I got sucked in to wherever it was. Like,
yeah. Well, and maybe what you felt as you're saying that is the same thing that I feel. You felt like you were going home. You felt like you were going to a place where people were there for you, that they cared about you, that they were interested in you being the best version of you. They had your back. They knew things that you didn't quite know yet, but that you were very open to learning in a minute, you know?
Did you watch Lost?
No.
The show? Oh my God. We'll have to do another interview when you've watched
I'll have
all
watched
these
Lost
things.
and listen to that interview. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In Lost, they say, and I have to go back and watch it. I watched it so long ago, but they kept saying like, where are we? Where are we? And that's what I felt like in this book. I'm like, where is this? Where am I in all of this?
Well,
and who am I? And, you know, what is this about? I mean, it's such a existential.
Yeah. Well, I love that visual. I'm going to hang on to that one for the rest of my life now, of that it was a door that was waiting to be opened, and I got to go through the door for sure. And I always feel like the very first person who's supposed to read whatever flows through me is me. Like these are things that I'm struggling with, they're challenging me, et cetera. So I'm very, very grateful for the chance to walk into the cafe every time. But much more than that, it was a door that became opened. Like I was just saying, hey, come on in, everybody. Like it's a great place. You guys got it. So if you feel like it, come and hang out here. There's like a lot to be felt, a lot to be experienced.
And since this book, your work has been traveling around the world, talking about your work.
Yeah, my life completely changed. It took a while because I, like the person you were describing, I didn't 100% embrace it at the start as like, this is just going to be what I do. And so I was balancing multiple things, some consulting work. I'm going to do a little real estate investing on the side. I was still living in a very fear-based system that said, I can't just be this. I mean, if you tell someone you're going into the arts and you're going to be an author or a songwriter, you might as well.
Right.
Like 99% of the people are going to be looking at it and think, if they don't actually outright say it in their head, they're going to be like, dude, you are going to be living at the poverty level. Congratulations, you know?
Right.
And all I can tell you is that it was really when I piece by piece got rid of the other things that somebody else, thousands of other people can do the things that I was spending my time on. But I was the only one who could do in this way the thing that I was supposed to be doing. And when I finally embraced that at 100%, that is when everything skyrocketed. So I think, again, the universe was like, okay, you want to run with 2 feet in different canoes, knock yourself out. But at some point, if you put them both in the one canoe and you sit down, you're going to go on a great big adventure. And that is totally what has happened.
Well, I just want to leave everybody with this quote from the book. Life is an amazing story. It's just that sometimes we forget we're the author and we can write it however we want. Yeah,
that's Mike who says that one. And same thing. That was not in my head the second before it got into my head. And I saw him, I was sitting with him and he explained it. And every time I think about that one, it just rings so true to me that, yeah. And I'll tell you one of the reasons I love that so much and why I'm so happy you chose that one is because who's empowered with that? Me, right? And I think that's what the cafe at its core is trying to help me and anyone else who visits there understand is that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to hold you back. The mass consumerism stuff, the phones, the distractions, the people telling you what fulfillment is. But at the end of the day, if you allow yourself to, you get to write the story.
Well, John, thank you so much for this incredible interview, for this incredible book. I'm sure the other ones are also equally as incredible, but this one is fantastic. And for sharing this story in both a spiritual way and a practical way, because I could, go way out there with my interpretations of what I think happened. But I think it's amazing. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And thanks for the questions. Like I said, this was one of the things I love about doing interviews that are super fun and super insightful is that I walk away with a different perspective. I'm the guest, and I'm always like, all right, I got to bring something. I want to help the listeners as much as I can, or share something that helps them. And my favorite ones are where I get to do that for sure, but I walk away with a perspective that I didn't have when I sat down. And you've done it with that concept of getting to be the one who opens the door and welcomes people in. So I'm going to carry that one for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this was awesome, as I knew it would be when I was reading the book, as I knew it would be when we talked 20 minutes before we even started, before I even pushed record. So thank you so, so much, John.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Amy. Not just for this, but for what you do as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.